Hello and welcome to another episode of the Voices of the Vic podcast with me, Mike Duffy. We're back again. We were back yesterday, myself and Cam, to discuss the 5-0 win in the first round of the Carabao Cup against MK Dons. So if you're watching this and you haven't seen that one, make sure you go back and check that out. It's on YouTube, Facebook, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all of it. It's on there. I'm here today on my own to chat to Ben from the YYY Files, which is a Stoke City podcast, as that is who we're playing the first home game of the 24-25 season, after a great first game of the season against Millwall, coming out 3-2 winners there, and 2 wins out of 2 so far for Clevs in his first full season, hopefully, as Watford manager. But as I say, I am joined by Ben, who has been on the podcast before from the YYY Files. A couple of things, Ben. Firstly, are you all good? And secondly, are the YYY Files, are they back? Because I know last time we spoke, you're on a bit of a break, I think. So have you brought them back for this season? Or?
Firstly, I'll answer your first question. Yes, I'm good, thank you. Secondly, is it back? In the sense that it's on the way out, it's back. I'll say that. There's probably 1 or 2 more episodes I'm going to squeeze out before it's time to call it a day, because whether it be other Stoke City stuff or otherwise, there's far too much to be doing to try and organise interviews in between then.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, we weren't going to do a review podcast last night after the MK Dons game, but it's not often you win 5-0, whether it be against lower league opposition or not. And yeah, it's crazy. But we'll jump straight into things. We'll jump straight into the transfer window because it's still ongoing, and obviously a lot of clubs tend to do a lot of business. I think there's only 2 teams in the Championship so far this season that haven't actually spent any money, and neither of them are us. So there has been a few transfers ins and out. Now, I am getting my information from Transfermarkt, so I'm not sure if some of these are maybe going into the youth, but that's why you're here to tell me. So the ins that I could sort of find in terms of who I think will be playing, you got Sam Gallagher, Eric Junior Bocat, Victor Johansson, Ben Gibson, and Bosun Lawal. Now, I want to start with Sam Gallagher because it's quite an interesting one for me. So he joined from Blackburn. I believe he's currently injured. He's not played. He didn't play against Carv, and he didn't play against Carlisle the other night either. Now, the thing for me is I want to know how you feel about that signing, because he played 24 times for Blackburn last season, only scored 3 times in the league. And he last hit double digits in the 16-17 season. That was for Blackburn as well. And I think the closest he's come prior to that was with 9 goals a couple of seasons ago. Is that something that worries you? Because you granted, I think you only spent 1.8 million, if my research is correct, but you're bringing someone in and he doesn't seem to score an awful lot of goals. So what's your thoughts, firstly, on bringing Sam Gallagher from Blackburn in?
The main thought is that he's 6'4". To be quite honest with you, he's a big heifer up front, which we've tried to experiment with for some time now. We had Stephen Fletcher a couple of seasons ago. I liked him, but just completely broken by the time we got him. Unfortunately, just injuries riddled his career. We had Wesley last season, who was an utter flop in every sense of the word. Didn't score a goal. The only goal he can claim he scored was an own goal against Leeds. And we're trying with Sam Gallagher this time. I think we've been after him before. The goal record is a concern if you think he's going to be that number 9 to score goals. Because I think even that 16-17 season might have been in League One when he was on loan at Blackburn. Not sure about that, but and then I think the reason why we brought him in is because we've got players that I'm sure we'll go on to talk about. Million Manhuff, Beijun Ho, Lewis Baker, who scored at the weekend. Players that need someone as a focal point to feed off. And I imagine Sam Gallagher will end the season with more assists than goals. And that's not a bad thing for Stoke. Stephen Schumacher's eyes like to get goals from all around the pitch. I can't see him being a striker that starts every week. We still have the number 9 shirt vacant. And you said we've only spent 1.8 million or so. our transfer budget is far, far bigger than that. So I anticipate that we'll spend that on goal scoring number 9. We've been linked with Jay Stansfield and Tom Cannon. We probably won't end up with either, but someone of that ilk, you'd imagine.
Yeah, well, it'll be, just on a side note, it'll be interesting to see what happens with Jay Stansfield, because, I mean, fair play to him, but Blues have got some set of bollocks on them, because I reckon they can prize him away in League One. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with him. But you mentioned Wesley there, and it sent a shiver down my spine, because we were linked with him, and he ended up going to you. And I think the fact that you just said that he had quite a poor time, probably that would have summed Watford's activity up transfer-wise. So I'm glad he ended up in the colours of red and white and not yellow, red and black. But talking of assists, and you Schumacher likes to get goals all around the pitch. Now, Eric Junior Boca, he come from Sint-Truiden. I probably butchered that pronunciation, from the Belgian Pro League. He's 25-year-old, and for a defender, he actually got 6 goal involvements last season. I think he scored twice and got 4 assists. Is the way that you play more with wing backs? So is this more an attack-minded sort of defensive player, or what's your thought process on Eric?
I think he is versatile. The first thing I would say, he can be deployed as a left winger, and I wouldn't be surprised to see him in that role at some points during the season if we need him to. Although we seem to be pretty stacked there now, because we've got Beijing Ho, who's probably our starting left winger. We're also going to have Andre Vidigal if he sticks around. We've just signed Lewis Kumas, who we think is going to play left wing for us as opposed to striker. So Bocat's probably going to be our starting left back. In terms of how Schumacher plays, he certainly plays with attacking fullbacks. We had Keanu Hoover last season. We brought in Junior Shamadou, not under Schumacher, but Schumacher does like him. All of those, including Bocat, are attacking-minded fullbacks. Pacey, aggressive, has a good cross on them as well. The only outlier to that would be Ender Stevens, but again, we had him previously, and he's more of a steady pair of hands, I think. Same as Lyndon Gooch on the right back side. So, I guess it could be wing backs in the sense that the defensive midfielder, whoever that might be, whether it be Jordan Thompson or maybe Lawal, who you've just mentioned, might drop back into that centre back role, allow the 2 centre backs to split and let the full backs push on. But to be honest, it's so early into Schumacher's first proper season where he's able to play the football he wants and bring his players in. We've not really seen what we're capable of yet. So it'll be interesting to see what we are capable of.
Yeah, and another player who you brought in, for me, this is probably one of the steals of the transfer window. You brought in Victor Johansson. A lot of clubs were after him. Are Stoke fans sort of sitting there thinking, how the bloody hell have we pulled this off? Because it wasn't quite free, was it? I think it was just over $1 million, if my research is correct. But you've got to be happy with that one. Johansson, even though Rotherham went down sort of without a fight, really, Johansson was by far and away probably the standout of their team. And like I say, a lot of teams in the Championship would have been sniffing around him. So, I mean, I'm guessing he played against Cov. What's the clean sheet if he did? What's the early thought process on Victor?
Thought process before he came in would have been that we've not had a starting goalkeeper who's been consistent, either in the team or just in performance-wise, since Jack Butland, and that is a long time ago. We've had, who we had then? Andrew Davis, Angus Gunn, Jack Bonham. The list goes on. We're literally into the half dozens of goalkeepers, maybe more than that, because we had Nicky Maempa and we still got Frank Fielding at some point, who've all made appearances for us over the course of the time here. So we needed a starting goalkeeper. That was a priority. Last season, we had Mark Chavez and Danny Leverson, 2 really good goalkeepers who sort of came in on loan, but we needed a permanent one just for some consistency over the years. I imagine we may have gone for either of those had their price tag been a bit lower. But Johansson, as you say, considering I think it was a relegation release clause. So it was no brainers to trigger that. And no wonder so many teams were in for him, because it was a steal. But I think we managed to convince him, probably in the way that we normally do. Money talks. But secondly, we have been starved of a good goalkeeper and a leader in the dressing room. And Stoke haven't been sniffing around the top 6 ever since we've come back down. but he's the sort of player that is going to start that momentum back up there. I'm not saying that with him and the team, that's us automatically challenging, but he's that sort of player that we need to recruit in other positions. Not all goalkeepers in the starting 11, but
No. Well,
his
you
quality
talk
for
about
certain, for sure.
that experience, and one of the signings, Ben Gibson. Now, I don't know how it's been sort of taken by the Stoke fans, but if you look on the whole of things, that it's a free transfer, and he's got 234 appearances in the Championship alone. So having experience like that, that's got to be another good signing made by Stoke in this window, because he knows the league. And a lot of people, you'll always get the people that say, oh, well, he's past it, his legs are gone. But sometimes, as long as you get the balance right between having experience and the youthful players as well, that is, you often find teams that go up always have one or two, a sprinkling of players that have been there and done it in that league before. It's like Watford at the moment. Whether it's rumours or not, we'll soon find out. We've been linked with Liam Cooper from Leeds, and you know, a lot of fans are saying, "Oh, well, do we really want him? His legs are gone." Leeds fans are saying, "Great servant" and all that, but he's clearly past it. Whereas, if you look on the other hand, I lose count the amount of times I look back on seasons we've done well, got promoted, and we've always had that sort of player that knows the league. So having someone like Gibson in there, with, like I say, 234 appearances in the league, that's got to be a massive box ticked for Stoke this season.
Absolutely. As you say, bags of experience, Premier League experience, and Championship experience for that promotion experience with Norwich. Did he get promoted with Norwich? I think so.
Yes, I think he did, yeah.
And I'm pretty sure that he got promoted with Middlesbrough as well. So, yeah, look, a good player, perhaps at the wrong end of his career as we'd have liked him. I'm pretty sure we were after him when he was let go from Middlesbrough and went to Norwich. That's by the by. He's still got it, even if it is just for this season.
Yeah.
But more than anything above his talent, which he played very well against Coventry at the weekend, by the way, it's his leadership. And so last season we had a centre back trio to pick from of Ben Wilmot, who was 23, Luke McNally, who I think was 25, and Michael Rose, who was 26. Don't get me wrong, all good players, but none of them have expressed themselves to be as much of a leader as Ben Gibson was. As you said, we've always had that character too. We've had Phil Jagielka, we've had Danny Bart, we've had James Chester. Before that was Ryan Shawcross, Robert Huth. All the way going back, we've always had that leader at the back. And last season, we sort of missed out on that. And he's coming straight in as first team captain as well. He sort of displaced Josh Laurent, who's now vice captain. I think he's just come in just to set some standards, basically. Because we've always had good players at Stoke, even over the last few years where we've underperformed. But that's exactly it. Those players have underperformed, and maybe it's the lack of standards that have been set by the management and the rest of the players. He should drag them up, and that whether he plays 10 games this season, that's worth it.
Yeah, well, it's the experience behind the scenes as well, isn't it? You know, even if he doesn't play, I mean, we were talking about this last night on our podcast, and we at Watford, we've definitely struggled, whether fans like to admit it or not. Since Troy left, we had a real problem with lack of leadership, and now we've got Wesley Hoot, whether he's off or not. We've got Musa Sissoko, who's captained the club before, and then we've got young Matty Pollock coming through, who's also so. We've finally come back round to now having a few options. And even, like you say, if Gibbo only plays sort of 10, 15 games, it doesn't matter, because you've got that experienced head and someone that's been there and done it in the background. One last player in terms of ins. I know you've had a couple more ins, but I wanted to mention him because he's an ex-Watford Academy graduate. Now, Bosun Lawal, you signed him from Celtic. Now, granted, I don't think he's made a senior appearance for Celtic. I might be wrong there, but I don't think he has. He's played in the Lowland Leagues, the same league as the lad that we've just signed from Celtic, Rocco Vata. But he broke through at Fleetwood, where he made 42 appearances, 6 goals and 2 assists. Now, what I wanted to ask you was, the majority of his games in his career have been at centre-back. And if you look on all the apps and online, he's listed as a centre-back. However, I did notice he has played a few times in centre mid, and out of those goals that he scored, he's got 5 of them playing as a centre mid. Where do you see him fitting in Stoke? Is he going in as a centre back? And secondly, as well, do you see him playing much? Because yes, he's had that season at Fleetwood where he's broke through, but as we all know, to jump up 2 leagues can be difficult, and you never know how a player's going to take it. I mean, the verdict will still be out on Langstaff, who's gone from Notts County to Millwall. But firstly, where do you see him fitting in? Is he going to be a centre back, or is he going to be deployed as a centre mid? And secondly, do you see him playing much this season?
So I'm not going to lie, I hadn't heard of him before July. So I'm relying heavily on those that do know about him. There's some good sort of scouting work doing at Stoke amongst the supporters, and some people have done some great write-ups and research on him. So I'm leaning heavily on them. You're right, absolutely right. He started out as a centre-back. I think he was with you guys as a centre-back, moved to Celtic, went on loan to Fleetwood as a centre-back, and was a relatively promising player. Fleetwood didn't do very well last season, sacked their manager, brought in Charlie Adam, ex-Stoke player, as their manager, and saw something in Lowell and turned him into a defensive midfielder. And since then, he just catapulted. There were attributes about his game, his physicality, his ability to drive with the ball, his eye for a goal, things that can't really be exploited in the centre-back position, they can be in the centre midfield position. And of course, he was only really 21 when he sort of made these talents known to people. So he had a great season for a very poor Fleetwood team that did get relegated. Went back to Celtic, and by all accounts, they've got Champions League, and as much as they do seem to have a bit of a prospect on their hands, they could do with the money instead. So we signed him for £2 million. He's worked with Glenn Whelan for the it might be their senior Ireland team, actually. So he's a coach for the Ireland setup, of course, very well known in Stoke quarters as well. So I dare say between Adam and Whelan, we've had a couple of recommendations for him. I see him playing personally, maybe not every week, but so our defensive, if we're talking strictly the number 6 role, we've got Ben Pearson there, who impressed on loan a season and a half ago. We signed him permanently, hasn't been the same player since. Not only has he suffered with injury, just red cards and Jordan Thompson has stepped his game up massively from when he signed for Stoke about 4 years ago now. He's an established first teamer, but probably in sort of the Glenn Whelan role where they had at Stoke, we feel like we could always replace him. Even when he stepped up his game, we always felt we could do just a touch better than him. And I guess Lowell is that attempt to do that. So he's certainly one for the future. That's been very highly stated by John Walters, the sporting director. He said, look, he's good enough to be in the first team now, and he will challenge Jordan Thompson for that position. But he sees him as being the next breakout star for Stoke in the next 3-4 years or so. And that's why I signed that long-term deal. And that's why we signed him on a permanent rather than a loan, I guess.
Yeah, it's certainly going to be interesting to see how he develops, because, as I say, he's another one from Watford who, unfortunately, he left, and we didn't sort of try and break through for whatever reason. He's obviously had that good season at Fleetwood. You mentioned there about Ben Pearson loving a card. Hate to break it to you, but Lowell got booked 10 times in those 42 games for Fleetwood. So
booked is fine. Booked is fine. Sending off is bad.
Yeah,
Jordan Thompson, I think, beat him. I'm pretty sure he had 16-yard cards last season. So
yeah. We've had our fair share of players like that as well. Stephen Schumacher, his first full season, obviously joined from Plymouth last season. We faced him twice at home, I think, because he would have been Plymouth manager when we played him at home, and then we played you guys 1-1 at home later in the season. How's he been received so far? Because I got his record here. He's managed 27 games. He's won 11 of them, drawn 6 and lost 10. So it's 1.44 points per match. So it's not bad, but it could be better, I suppose. But how's his style of football and him as a manager coming across at Stoke so far with the fans?
He had a difficult job last season. I think I'll caveat that first. we had, I think, 23 or 24 new recruits last season. That is unprecedented, I think, probably at this level. I think only Notts Forest have really done it in the Championship. And I assume, with the amount of players that you let go, you guys might follow in a similar vein this season. But the squad turnover was massive. And pretty much none of them were recruited by Schumacher. So players that didn't know the league, players that didn't know each other, and now a manager that knew none of them either. He had a very difficult job, and it's very hard to judge him and his football based on last season. What I do really rate about him last season was he was trying to play his ideals in terms of inverted fullbacks into midfield and trying to pass through the thirds and move it quickly. And our players just weren't suited to it, particularly in a relegation battle where we would just get found out. So he changed. He adapted his style, and it worked. We finished the season incredibly well. I think even now we're on a run of, I want to say, a winning streak of about 5, 6, 7 games, maybe, all of them without conceding a goal. So that's fantastic. And we started the season really well this season against Coventry, beating them. He even played the kids against Carlisle, and they looked fantastic. And that's a good sign that he's able to have an effect on a whole squad. But what I like about him is he's a nice bloke, and I know that can only get you so far in football, but he is a nice bloke. But he's also a good coach, and he's got, I think it's 4 main principles. He's got, I can't recite them off the top of my head. I'm sure the players could, but he's got 4 non-negotiables. He calls them, that no matter what style he plays, no matter what opposition they come up against, you have to follow those non-negotiables. And that level of coaching, particularly when managers chop and change so often in this league, to be able to break down your message, right? You guys know that better than anybody. To be able to break down your message quickly is really important, and it can get you a real head start. And I think that that's what's happened this season, particularly with the pre-season. We look well drilled, even with half a team that we've got at the moment. Most of our good players are out. I'd say we're within a fighting chance of beating anybody at the moment, and that's weird, because the optimism going into the season, we were looking at the end of the table. I certainly don't think we'll end up there this season. We'll probably middle out, but it's not going to be as bad as we thought.
Well, you just mentioned there, obviously, that the streak extending into last season as well. So I've just had a quick look here, and I tell you what, he's done bloody well. So you last lost on the 13th of April against you drew against Sheffield Wednesday, which back then wouldn't have been a bad result.
Massive pressure game. Pressure game.
He come in and really turned the ship there. So you beat Plymouth, his old team, 3-0. Then you beat Southampton in their own backyard, 1-0. Then Bristol City, 4-0. And even in pre-season, you haven't conceded a lot. So you beat Chester 3-0, Cork City 5-0, Crewe 2-1, lost to Stockport 1-0, beat Bolton 1-0, and then lost to Alkmaar 1-0. So all very tight games. And then, as you mentioned, you beat Coventry 1-0 opening game of the season, and then you beat Carlisle as well. So, a really, really good start. I mean, that win over Coventry, we did our predictions podcast I think it was the week before the season started, and I actually tipped Cov to go up this season, because I think they look a real outfit. So that must have been a massive win for you guys. I mean, in terms of that 1-0 win over Coventry, what would you say your strengths were in that game that you can carry over to this Saturday, really?
I think we showed both sides of the game, actually, in Coventry. The first half, we were so dominant. I think that's partially because Coventry aren't quite the finished article either. I think they've signed most of the players they wanted, but the players they brought in haven't quite bedded in yet, and they were missing a couple of midfielders. So Ben Sheaf was the big miss there for them, and we were just able to basically bully their midfield, and we know that's how Cov like to play. They're a good passing team. We just didn't let them. Players like Wouterberger, Josh Laurent, and Jordan Thompson, can't find a better word, shithouse their way through the game. And we were just able to bully them into submission in the first half. We had lots of chances, and I'm sure you come on to weaknesses, we just couldn't score. In the second half, they came out much better. I don't know if they changed shape or changed message. They didn't make any subs, as far as I'm aware. but they were just better. But we were able to ride that out relatively comfortably. They had more of the ball this time, but their shots were very, very limited. And we went down the other end and scored a good counter-attacking goal with a substitution that Schumacher made. And I think, Schumacher does plan his substitutions well in advance, I think, and he'd have hoped that that's exactly what would have happened. And 2 minutes after making the subs, we scored a goal. So it was somewhat orchestrated. So well drilled, I think, is which I've not said about Stoke in a long time. We look well drilled. We really do. And that will only improve as more players come back into the team. It just depends whether someone is able to A, find us out, or B, pick off our weaknesses in our team, because we do have some. We're playing Lyndon Gooch at left wing at the moment. Whether Lewis Kumas comes in, we don't know. Ben Gibson and Ben Wilmot are not exactly the quickest players, so if you're able to knock some balls over the top, then you might have some joy there. And let's hope Victor Johansson's fit, because at the moment, I think Frankie Fielding played against Carlisle, and he's 36, and he made his debut for the club. So, we're praying he stays fit massively.
And not to just going off what you said there in terms of the way that you sort of implemented a style against Coventry, not to sort of tie you with this brush that Stoke have been tied with over the years, but physicality side, is that a big thing for Stoke at the moment? Because the only reason I ask, one thing which Watford have really struggled with in recent years, and I say the name and it sends a shudder down my spine, even though we beat them, is Millwall. So we just cannot get on with playing teams like Millwall. Now, we beat them 3-2. We made bloody hard work of it. We went 2-0 up. They come back 2-2, and then we scored in the last minute to nick the 3 points. But every season for the last however long, we've just struggled with teams like Millwall because of their physicality. And in recent years, it looks like we've not had that fight in us. So is the physicality a big part of Schumacher's game? Is that something that Stoke are now seeing again? Because if memory serves, well, if I'm not mistaken, I think, was it Nathan Jones come in and tried to sort of change the style completely, and it was all about this passing football and whatnot. And again, not to go back to those days, but Stoke are really known for that, in your face physical side. So are you maybe seeing a return of that under Schumacher?
I don't know. I think it's a weird blend of strong technicians, if that makes sense. So, back in the Pulis days, they would just be big lumps who would kick people and we'd win football matches. And don't be wrong, it worked then, and that's great. With managers like Mark Hughes, Nathan Jones, we tried to move away from that, and it just didn't work. So you can be both sides of the coin and be wrong. And I think now we've got a good blend, because if I mention players like Millie Manhuff, Victor Johansson, Wouter Berger, your first thought is probably they're not bad on the ball. They're good players. But if I said that Wouter Berger's 6'2" and loves a crunching tackle, Millie Manhuff is a short but really stocky bloke who will happily fill in at not a right wing back role, but happily will come back and defend. Victor Johansson recently admitted on our official club podcast that he loves pain. So that's great, isn't it? When you've got players who are good at football and also don't mind showing the dirty side of the game. As I said, Jordan Thompson, 16 yellow cards, I think it was last season. You need that blend, don't you, of good attacking players. Bae Jun Ho it might be the microcosm of all of this, because he is a really nippy, clever, wonderful footballer to watch when he has the ball. But he loses that ball and he's pressing immediately. He will tackle your players, and that's coming from a 5'9" Korean fella. It's great to see, and I think we're finally getting that blend right, particularly with players like Sam Gallagher coming in as well. And I'd be interested to see what technicians come in, because I think that is now possibly what we're missing. Someone who can really create chances in the midfield and score a goal, which is quite important, I suppose. But yes, we're missing that.
I know I mentioned Sam Gallagher at the start. I believe he's injured unless he's due back on Saturday. Is there any other injuries or people missing out, suspensions or whatever from last season? Or
Quite a few, I think. So Ben Pearson is injured and will not be playing. Off the top of my head, Bajan Ho is just coming back from a bit of a knock. I think we're trying to wrap him in bubble wrap a little bit. So I think he's available for this game, which is good because he's our best player. But will probably start off the bench, I would imagine. Who else is injured? Michael Rose is injured, but he probably wouldn't have played at centre back anyway. Ender Stevens is injured, but again, we've got Ari Bocat who are probably playing that role. So there aren't many players in the first team who are injured. The problem is it striker. So Ryan Mai has been injured for a long time. Sam Gallagher got injured against AZ Alkmaar, I think it was. So that's annoying. He managed to, like, his first 20 minutes looked okay and then pulled his calf. So we have been playing, instead of Niall Ennis, who we signed in January, we've been playing 18-year-old Emre Tezgal, who is from the local area. He's been at the Stoke Academy since he was probably half his age. And he's finally broken through to the first team after a good loan at MK Dons last season. I imagine he'll be playing up front. He scored his first goal against Carlisle. A little bit fortunate with the finish, with it bouncing in, but he looks a real player. And whilst we haven't brought in that number 9 that I mentioned at the start, he's probably our best striker going into it. And I imagine we'll be seeing more and more of him across the season, if not being loaned out to a really good League One club. And if he does, whoever gets him is going to be very, very lucky.
Yeah, you mentioned fortunate strokes there. I mean, they all count, and especially with young lads, if they get that first goal, hopefully the confidence only skyrockets through. I mean, we're probably seeing the effect of that a bit at the moment, because we, as I say at the start, we beat MK Dons 5-0, and one of your old boys, Tom Ince, was very fortunate with let's say 2 of the goals, because he scored a hat-trick. So it'll be interesting to see. Actually, we were talking about this last night, if he's going to feature this weekend against his old club. I mean, is he someone that you're a bit wary of? Do you often have ex-players come up against you and you think, oh shit, I really don't want to play him? Like, what's your thoughts on Tom Ince? I might have asked you this last season, but we didn't really see him much. But I think we're going to see him a lot more this season.
I can't remember what I said about Tom Ince, but I think it was, if you can get past he sulked a bit at Stoke, let's be real.
Right,
So
yeah.
he signed him and he thought he was going to get promoted first time of asking. He didn't, and found out actually he got a bit battered and he got replaced, and he didn't like that. So fine, his expectations have probably changed coming to Watford, and that's a good thing.
Yeah.
I think his expectations definitely changed when he was at Reading on loan. Yeah, he's a good technician, right? He is a good player. We just never saw that at Stoke. Am I wary of him? No, because I never saw that in a Stoke shirt. And when he was at Derby and the like, Stoke didn't really care about Derby at that point. I'll be honest. I mean, if he's scoring a hat trick, any game coming off any player coming off the back of a hat trick, we've got to be worried about for sure. And I don't think there's any players in the squad that would have played with Tom Ince. Maybe Jordan Thompson. So if he plays in midfield, maybe he might get a kick from Jordan Thompson. You never know. But as far as I'm aware, his weakness is that he's the most one-footed player I've ever seen in my life. So just direct him onto his weak foot and we'll be fine.
I think we saw a glimpse of that. He got put through one-on-one and dinked it over the goalkeeper. Goalkeeper come rushing out and he put it wide, and it was all right. It's going to be one of them nights, is it? And then he goes and scores a hat trick. So yeah, well, who knows if he'll play against his old team on Saturday. But just last couple of questions. You mentioned earlier about the start of the season and the Stoke fans' sort of expectations for this season. What are your targets for this season? Are the fans being realistic? Are they expecting a return to the Premier League anytime soon under Schumacher? What's the thought process around Stoke at the moment?
I think the buzz has finally died. Like, anyone who had any optimism for us to go up has now converted. No, I don't think that there's any chance that Stoke go up this season. Hell, I'd love to be surprised, but just of where we've been, between 14th and 17th for the last 6 years, I can't see that. I think it will change. I think we'll be top half for the first time, provided that Schumacher continues in the same vein that he has been doing over the last, I'm not going to say the winning streak's going to last forever, but certainly since John Walters came in as technical director, Schumacher's certainly been more pragmatic in his approach. And with a proper preseason, I think we will be much better off than where we have been. We're finally able to invest as well. So, like I say, expect us to spend a lot of money on a striker and/or
I think we may have lost Ben there halfway through his answer. It's the joys of live podcasting, eh? It sounded like, though, he was saying that Stoke fans are going to be realistic. They have got a bit of money in the bank now, so who knows what will happen. We're going to try and get Ben back. However, before anyone leaves, because I am going to ask Ben one more question if I can get him back, I urge you not to leave just yet, because I do have a few things that I want to say after the podcast in regards to the bands that we usually plug on our social media. I think Ben is trying to come back. Ben was saying 12th. He's just messaged me. Apologies about this. The joys of live podcasting, eh? We don't do things professionally here at Voice of the Vic, regardless. So when shit like this happens, it really does hit the fan. Excuse me. Unfortunately, Ben, that is all we're going to hear from Ben tonight. He bowed out on a 12th finish in the league for Stoke City. Maybe good times will be back for Stoke sometime soon. To be honest, I thought with the signings they've been making, a few of them maybe showed intent a little bit. So it'll be interesting to see where they finish up this season, and I'm sure it'll be a good game. And hopefully, sorry Ben if you can still hear this, but hopefully it's three wins out of 3 for Tom Cleverley's men at the weekend. But yeah, if you're just joining us, unfortunately, Ben has disconnected. Ben has given me his scoreline now, and he said 1-1. He's gone Manhoef for Stoke. Again, don't know if I've pronounced that correctly or not, but 1-1 is his prediction. So if you want to follow along with Ben, Ben's details and the YYY files, all of the information is in the description below. Whether you're watching on Facebook or YouTube, you can find the link in the description below. Right, now, for last little bit, get your comments in as well. If you're rewatching this back, get your comments in with your score predictions. Let me know your team predictions as well, because me and Cam were speaking, obviously, last night after the MK Dons game, and we were saying about sorry, the cat is in the way. Again, brilliant. The joys of live podcasting. You have to move a cat who's sat right here. Me and Cam were speaking about who we thought might make the starting 11 after impressing on Tuesday night against MK Dons. Is Tom Ince going to be one of those? Is he going to face his former club? Who knows? Would you drop him coming off the back of a hat trick? If you do drop him, who are you going to do it for? Me and Cam both said that we'd bring him in for Kayembe and play him next to Chakva. So let us know your score predictions. Let us know your team predictions as well in the comments below. Leave it a like. Even though we've had a few iffy moments at the end there, hopefully it's still been good enough. Leave it a like. Hit that subscribe button as well. We're on 525 subscribers, which is absolutely out of this world, because I didn't for 1 minute think we'd ever make it that much. I'd have been happy with 5, let alone 525. But as I say, before I go, I want to talk to you just very quickly about, you would have seen on our Facebook, on our Instagram, and sometimes on our Twitter as well, there is a local band from Abbots Langley who have recently started up. They're called No Rest for the Spacemen. You can find them on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. I believe their links to all their social media platforms are in the description below. If they're not, they certainly will be after this stream is finished. Make sure you check them out on all the socials. Drop them a follow, drop them a like, you name it, drop it on. They're playing this weekend at Space Fest. They're actually hosting it. And there's going to be, not just them, there's going to be other artists there as well. Now, that's at the Old Palace in Kings Langley. It's Saturday the 17th of August. It starts at 7 p.m. So, even better, it's a 20-minute drive, 6 miles from Vicarage Road to the Old Palace in Kings Langley. So you've got plenty of time to get home, get showered, get changed, and get your boogie on and get yourself down to the Old Palace at Kings Langley. It's raising money for a charity which is based in Berkhamsted called Hector's House. Now, what they do is they promote mental health awareness, not just for men, and suicide prevention as well. So this whole evening, the Space Fest, is raising money for that. You can find more information about that below. So that ticker that's going across, it's www.hector'shouse.org.uk/about/our-work. Like I say, they're based in Berkhamsted. So if you want to find out more, if you want to support them, you can do. They've raised an awful lot of money. And this is one of the smaller charities as well. So fair play to the guys over at No Rest from the Spacemen. But the reason I wanted to mention them as well is the other week, they had a new single come out called Goodbye Jane. They've very kindly given me the track and I'm going to play it. And as soon as I've played it and as soon as it's finished, the stream will end. So just a quick recap. Make sure you go and check them out. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Spotify, iTunes, you name it, they're on there. Go and give them a follow. And they're playing at Space Fest at the Old Palace in Kings Langley, Saturday, 7 p.m. So enough time to get back from the footy and drive over there. It's 20 minutes from the Vic. So go and watch Tom Cleverley's Horns win another one, 3 out of 3, and then go and celebrate your evening by helping raise money for a mental health awareness and suicide prevention charity in the form of Hector's House. It's going to be a great night. I'm gutted I'm not there. I entered tickets to win for Stoke, but unfortunately I didn't win them. So I won't be there, but I'll be sure to get over to one of their gigs soon. And I'm going to play their new song, Goodbye Jane. The link to stream that is down below as well. So make sure you go and stream that. Purchase it on iTunes if you wish as well. But I'm going to play that now, and then that will be the end of the stream. So thank you, everyone. Take care, and come on, you Horns.
They can figure out themselves, so it seems, but never in my world. 1, 2 years, they can go by quick, you know it's funny what our system miss, but I don't recognize the story on my script. And I miss you, babe, and I don't know if I tried, but I still miss you, babe. There's no moment of my life that I want without your grace. Oh, but it's funny when we try. Goodbye, Jane. Well, it's time that I came back down, fusing life with this living hell. But it's easier when you're chasing happiness. Oh, ain't it strange to think that I've done this? You know I never thought, but I must admit that I lost myself somewhere on the way in. But I miss you, babe, and I don't know if I tried, but I still miss you, babe. There's no moment of my life that I want without your grace. if I tried, but I still missed you, babe. There's no moment of my life that I want without you.